Hello everyone, welcome to American Civil War and UK history and the Unfiltered Historian, which I forgot to mention earlier. So big shout out to Tyler. Anyway, we are here in Great Torrington, the Battle of Great Torrington, 1646. Al is now going to explain the start of the battle, but before we get onto that, we are going to talk about what is going on and why the battle ends up in Great Torrington. So as you can see here, I have a map of the southwest of England, and Great Torrington is here. And Al is now going to explain how we ended up getting to this point and then explain how the battle started.
Okay, so the English Civil War started in 1642 when Charles raised his flag at Nottingham Castle, in effect starting the English Civil War August 29th. By the time 1646 came along, the war had been going on for 4 years. People were getting fed up with this war. Harvests weren't getting brought in. A lot of people getting killed, brothers fighting brother and such like. Most of the country had fallen to the parliamentarians, but the southwest, us down here, Devon, Cornwall, parts of Dorset, were still staunch royalists, apart from some of the coastal towns and cities. Now, Thomas Fairfax came down from London with an army of over...
Oh, one moment, I've got Thomas Fairfax.
Over 10,000 men with him.
That's Thomas Fairfax.
He came in quickly across Salisbury Plain all the way down to Exeter. He had a man with him called Hugh Peters, amongst others, a radical preacher, a complete madman who had got off his horse at Salisbury Plain, knelt in the mud in the pouring rain and begged for gunpowder to blow up Stonehenge. He said it was a monument to paganism. But Thomas Fairfax, being a level-headed man, said no, gunpowder's too expensive, didn't blow it up. Anyway, Thomas Fairfax made his way down to Exeter. Most of the towns had fallen. Exeter was a different nut to crack. Exeter still being surrounded by its city wall. So the Battle of Exeter became the Siege of Exeter. While Thomas Fairfax was at Exeter, he learns that Ralph Hopton and others were at a meeting with a young Charles II, Prince Charles.
Ralph Hopton?
Who would become Charles II, down in Truro. All the Royalist army met in Truro and decided to march on to Exeter. Now, the true commander of the Royalists was a man called Sir Richard Grenville. So Richard Grenville was a bit of a hothead. He drank a lot. He didn't care much for the young prince. The prince was only 11 years old, and he didn't take him very seriously. And he swore at the young prince, and in disgust, the young Prince of Wales, the future Charles II, had Richard Grenville thrown into prison on St Michael's Mount, and gave the command of the Royalist army to Sir Ralph Hopton. Now, most of the Royalist army were Cornish Royalists. They would have followed Richard Grenville to the ends of the earth, but they didn't like Ralph Hopton very much. But they marched with Sir Ralph Hopton, left Cornwall and started marching on to Exeter. Now, Hopton knew he didn't have a very big army. He had about 7,000 men. So instead of going the logical way to Exeter, which would be Okehampton way, they came Hollesley and Torrington way. Knowing very well Hollesley had a large royalist force, he's collecting more men, then to Torrington, then make his way to Exeter that way. He went through Hollesley, picked up loads of men, and he came to Torrington. Now, the weather was very bad. His baggage train left behind in the mud, so he stayed at Torrington for his baggage train to catch up. About 5 miles outside of Torrington, a place called Woodford Bridge, and this is where most of his baggage train were bogged down in the mud. He had flocks of sheep, cows and all sorts of, obviously, food to keep the army on the go. So he came to Torrington, and while he was waiting to Torrington, he decided to barricade the town. He knew that in Barnstable there was quite a large parliamentarian force, so he barricaded the town of Torrington. 2 barricades across East Street and West Street. Now, Thomas Fairfax in Exeter learns that Sir Ralph Hopton has made his way from Cornwall to Torrington and was on the way to Exeter. So he decided to split his forces. He leaves half his army in Exeter, bombarding the city of red-hot cannonballs, and decides to march on to Torrington. The first town he comes to is a town called Curtin. In the old tongue, today it's known as Crediton. He describes Crediton as a great lousy town. There he says the way be so bad, which means the roads are so muddy, he had to leave behind his 5 great pieces of ordnance, his 5 cannons. He left them behind at Crediton and marches on. He comes to a little village called Chumley. Chimley it was called back then. There he's recorded as leaving £40 behind to be distributed amongst the poor. He was in a hurry, he didn't stay very long, he marched on and eventually comes to a little village called St Giles in the Wood, which is about 3 miles that way. There's a great manor house, a manor Stephenstone house owned by Lord Roll, and nobody knows where Lord Roll was. Lord Roll was one of these people who kept changing sides. One minute he was a parliamentarian, next minute he was a royalist. He wasn't around, but his manor house was held by 200 musketeers. When they saw the size of Fairfax's army, they fired a smattering of shots and quit the manor and ran away. And Stephenstone House became the headquarters for Sir Thomas Fairfax. Immediately Sir Thomas Fairfax sends out scouts and spies to creep on the town of Torrington and check the the defences and that of Torrington, the Torrington Royalists under Hopton. But Hopton knew that Fairfax had arrived at St Giles in the Wood. He also sent out spies and that to check up on Fairfax. Now we read that these two bodies of men did meet 6 fields breadth from the outside of town at the old turnpike. We are now standing on the old turnpike road. This is where the two armies would have met. This piece of road here, I know it looks like a muddy lane now, but this was the original road to Barnstable, which if the Barnstable Royal Parliamentarians would have come, they would have come this way. And there's the other side of it there. And this is the original road, the original turnpike. And this is where the two armies first met. Don't forget, it's dark, it's pouring down with rain. Nobody really knows who were who. Back then, a series of field signs and passwords were used. For the parliamentarians, it was a sprig of gorse in their hats and the password, Emmanuel, God with us. For the royalists, it's a white handkerchief on the right arm and the password, we are with you. If you didn't know the password, didn't show the field sign, you quite easily got shot by your own men. We read of Thomas Fairfax, the commander of the parliamentarian forces, riding through the fields with a body of men, getting challenged by a body of musketeers. He said the wrong password. The parliamentarian password, Emmanuel, God be with us, had been found out. So it was changed, he didn't know, to truly. And he got shot, but lucky he didn't get shot, and he survived. So this is where the two armies started fighting through the hedgerows. We read they fire musket balls and coarse language through the hedgerows at each other. So obviously they were swearing at each other and firing musket balls and coarse language. Through far superior force, the parliamentarians stopped pushing the royalists back across these fields towards the town of Torrington. We also read of musketeers who used matchlock muskets tying the smouldering match in the hedgerows, so the opposing forces see all these glowing embers in the night, think there's lots of musketeers here, we've got to hold on. When they creep up, it's just matches hidden or tied in the hedgerows, giving time to escape back to the barricades and back to Torrington. So this is the Turnpike Road. This is where the Battle of Torrington first started.
Okay, thank you, Al. Thank you for that. So we're going to move to another location now, and we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers.